AM. Let's continue with a look at the markets. Analysts expecting another interest rate hike this afternoon. The decision will be announced as part of the outcomes of the first Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee meeting for the year. Our business reporter, Newzroom is live for us and will be joined in a moment by an economist from Absa. Well, talking about the banking sector. Newzroom, what are their expectations this afternoon?
Oli, you'd remember that in November last year, the Reserve Bank's Monetary Policy Committee meeting hiked rates by 25 basis points. The outlook this time around is that the banking sector seems to be in agreement with consensus that another hike may be on the cards. But Miyelani Maluleke, economist at Absa, joins us now for more details. Miyelani, the consensus is a 25 basis point hike once again. You agree, and what is the justification?
Look, we agree. It's obviously a very important announcement that is coming through this afternoon for a lot of South Africans out there who want to know what is going to happen to the cost of credit. But when we look at market developments since that November MPC meetings, it just looks to us like on balance, the case for another hike has become even stronger. We've seen just last week, we saw the inflation numbers for December with headline inflation actually coming much higher than expected at 5.9%. And we've seen, I think, quite clearly as well that oil prices have also shot up quite significantly. So when you look at on balance, it's clear that I think since the last MPC meeting, inflation risks have actually continued to intensify. And we think that the South African Reserve Bank will probably want to respond with that, with another 25 basis point increase this afternoon.
More of the questions around why there would be a 25 basis point increase stems from the hike that we saw in November last year. That justification, along with the global dynamics and the movements that the U.S. Federal Reserve is taking in terms of interest rates, is South Africa on the same footing, or does the South African economy need something slightly different from what the globe is doing?
Look, I think it's a question that is asked very often, that is the South African Reserve Bank just always following what the Fed is doing? And the truth is that they don't do that, but the actions of global central banks are very important, and we heard from the Fed yesterday that they will be doing tightening. So how does that affect us? And that affects us because if we see higher interest rates around the world, and in the U.S. in particular, you could start seeing a lot of investors taking money outside of emerging markets like South Africa back into developed markets, and that could probably weaken the exchange rate, which then gives us a little bit of inflationary pressures. And I think the South African Reserve Bank may have to respond to those inflationary pressures. But yeah, in short, I think the SARB doesn't have to follow the Fed one for one. But I think for us, when you look at domestic fundamentals, you look at what is happening to inflation here in South Africa, it's pretty clear that the risks have intensified. And given that we know that the South African Reserve Bank wants to see inflation between 3 to 6%, and more recently they've been clear that they actually want to see inflation around 4.5%, there is a clear case for them to deliver a little bit of monetary policy tightening here.
Of course, any move from the MPC on interest rates affects the lending rate, and that is the key for the banking sector as well as those who are servicing mortgages. Is there at least room for a stay? Because we are at 3.75% currently.
Look, I think they've made it clear last year, when they delivered that 25 basis point hike, that, we are probably entering into a period where we will see monetary policy normalization. And I think that normalization means that the hike that we think we will get this afternoon will not be the last this year.
That is not what many of us want to hear as consumers, but we have to wait until 3 p.m. Xoli, that's it from me right here in Sandton. Back to you in studio.